Well, we are back, 2025 Tinstreamer season, and it's been a while. Last podcast I did was November, and we got into the end of the year, and I'm like, I can't ask someone to sit down with me for an hour and a half. Everyone's freaking out because of Christmas. Christmas, the big time suck at the end of the year. But I can't think of anybody better that start the 2025 season off than this guy that's sitting across from me. He's not a taxidermist. We'll talk about we'll talk about all these animals. I'm connected to this guy. This right here, this will define my family, and you'll know where I came from. But the guy sitting across from me, whether you like it or not, he is the reason I'm doing this podcast. I did his and his brother, Trey McWilliams. These are the McWilliams. This is Mike McWilliams, everybody.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Say hi. Say everybody.
Hello.
Mike and his brother, Trey. Trey's a celebrity. Trey's been on Win, Lose, or Draw. Yeah. Was he on the dating game?
No, just Win, Lose, or Draw.
Okay. Always make that up.
Yeah.
So Trey and Mike, Trey was a mystery. He wasn't around when I was in high school. Mike is from Snyder, which is where I'm from. And Mike is one of those guys, back in the 80s, kids, we didn't have TikTok celebrities. We didn't have anybody on. So your celebrities, I'm stealing this from another radio show host, the great Ron Bennington on Sirius XM, the greatest interviewer that there is. I mean, Tom Snyder too, but that's past everyone.
Years ago.
Yeah. Your first celebrities were the older kids in school, or your cousin. That's what Ron says. Your relatives that didn't live with you. And so Tim Key would be that way. He didn't live with us. He actually kind of did toward after his brothers left and everything. But Tim was a cousin. He was kind of a celebrity. You know, you're like, oh, he went other places.
Yeah.
He lived in Fluvanna. And of course, Mike was a celebrity because he was like this all-star athlete, older guy, friends with my sister, and just this untouchable person.
Untouchable. Yeah.
What, Mike? I was like probably 13 years old. You could drive. You had a,
oh, that's true. That's true.
And the funny thing, this is a little side story. Most of my life, a McWilliams have sold me drugs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's been my drug dealer.
Yeah. Luckily, you haven't needed that much.
Well, no. When I was a kid, I needed lots of drugs.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. I was sick all the time. Dr. Bryce.
Oh, my gosh.
He would write prescriptions.
Yeah.
So Mike's dad was our pharmacist, and Mike is currently, well, he's not really my pharmacist because I don't really come anymore. I don't live in Snyder anymore.
No. I could ship it to you, like Amazon. We could hook you up.
You could hook me up. That'd be nice.
I'm not a fancy website, thing.
But you could actually drop it in the mail.
Hook you up.
So we're sitting down with Mike. I did Mike's podcast 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. My nephews listen to it and they go, I've written thousands of magazine articles, thousands, not really, maybe 80. I don't know. I don't know how many I've written. A handful. I've written a lot and never had any feedback from my nephews. And I did this podcast, which is big. It's pretty big here in Snyder.
What's that?
Your podcast.
Oh, yeah. The Relative Truth, by the way.
The Relative Truth.
Yeah.
Give it a listen. It's Trey and Mike chatting about
just life. Yeah. We try to be, it's one of those deals. It's a lousy excuse for us getting to have a conversation regularly, but it's, we say we're the number one podcast in the edutainment genre, and that's not, and we made that up so that we could be number one. So we're kind of we're not, it's nothing special. It's just, we try to be funny, but I don't know that we are. And then we try to be mindful of current events. And typically we got kind of challenged on one of ours lately that we're not necessarily if someone were to fact check us, we might be, so we may not be accurate, but we have fun. So
well, we get the Tinstreamer podcast is fact checked by producer Maddie at all times.
Oh, okay.
And so we have no mistakes. Sometimes I mispronounce words. I get to the precipice of a word and I'm like, I'm going to screw this. I don't know how to pronounce this.
Okay. Yeah.
Puerto Vallarta. I've been struggling with that. Alice and I went to Mexico and we flew into Puerto Vallarta. See, I'm screwing it up now. And you'd think from years and years of watching Love Boat that I would know how to say Puerto Vallarta. And I was telling Jared.
It was by tattoo? No, that was Fantasy Island.
It was after Love Boat. the gopher, and
How do you know this stuff?
and the doc was always trying to get busy with all of the guests on the boat. He's the doctor. He's the ship's doctor.
Oh yeah, okay.
Dr. Bricker. Man, I can't believe I remember that.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah. So you think I'd know how to say, because they always either stopped at Puerto Vallarta or I can't think of the other port. But Alice and I went to Mexico, and that's where we flew into. And I was trying to tell Jared, he asked where we flew into, and I'm like, oh man, Jared's so freaking smart. And like, I was like, I'm sweating. I'm like, I know I'm not going to say this very well, which is funny. I think about you is the precursor. You're the Jared before the Jared.
Oh yeah.
Because you and I spent a lot of time riding bicycles and running and swimming next to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think about, we went out to Lake Thomas and swam and paddled, and
you followed me in a canoe as I swam across Lake Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we did it out at Allen Henry one time.
I don't think we did Allen Henry. I used to go out there. Y'all had a place out there that I'd go out there and swim. I'd launch off y'all's boat, but I think you and I retired the team there at that point. Yeah. Because we wore Terry out a little bit. Terry's your wife.
Yeah.
And we I think she was going to divorce me at some point.
There were times. The ride we made to Lubbock, that was, that really kind of put so Brandon and I took off. We thought early one morning and thought we could get to Lubbock and get there in time. And we were a little later than what we'd expected. And Terry was going to meet us. And I didn't know, I think this is maybe before Google Maps had come in.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We didn't have smartphones. I don't think we carried a phone.
No. Oh yeah.
No.
And so anyway, I'd kind of given her a ballpark as to where, cause y'all had a house up there or apartment or something that Keith lived in or something. But anyway, and didn't know the exact address. And anyway, Terry ended up finding us. And
she was really worried. Yeah. I think she was pregnant. And so it was a monumental, like I said, Mike was my training partner for, we were so deep in triathlons and running events and mountain bike, Lajitas. Like I talk about these events now, like Lajitas. So my first foray back into Texas, I did this bikepacking story with Jared. We've talked about that a million times. And then I did adventure media with him and the students from Texas Tech. And there was a podcaster, Michael Farnsworth, Bikes or Death. He's another influence on doing the podcast. And I remember being in Big Bend, and they all assumed that was my first time in Big Bend.
Oh, really?
This is 2019.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And they're like, because I had come from Colorado. We were living in Colorado at the time. And so everyone just assumed I was this big Oveja Negra bikepacking guy from Colorado. I'm like, can you not listen to the way I talk?
Yeah.
Got a bit of an accent. And they go, oh, so, is this your first time in Big Bend? How do you like it? I go, oh no, I've been coming to Big Bend since like 93.
Yeah.
And they're all like, what? And they're like, oh, you're like an OG. I'm like, yeah, I've been, but there's been people going to Big Bend much longer than that. But yeah, we used to do a very, very big race in Lajitas. It was a Norba Classic.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of mountain bike riders from all around the country would come.
Yeah.
And that was the first time you started shaving your legs again.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I'd cycled in college.
Yeah.
I'd spent a couple of years being pretty serious about cycling and then kind of got out of it or whatever. And then it's always that weird, it's kind of embarrassing because you kind of have to think, am I committed or am I just, and anyway, I'd been riding a little bit and I thought, well, we'll venture out there to the deal. And I said, yeah, I better probably ought to shave.
You talked about it you're like, I don't want to shave my legs. I don't want to have to, fall and it's on and on. And you shaved your legs. And of course, you and I had been riding quite a bit, road bikes. And then you got this mountain bike and we got ready for Lajitas. Let's talk about where we are real quick. Cause you may be confused about where we are and then we'll get back to Lajitas. So this is like Brandon's origin story.
Yeah.
And, Mike's big part of that origin story as far as my endurance career. And not that I just did things. I don't think I really had an endurance career, but we did some big stuff together.
Yeah.
And
you more than I though.
Yeah. And you've done some pretty cool stuff. But this room we're in. This guy I shot for a magazine story. This, like I said, we'll talk about this later. I just thought it'd be funny to put up here. But this, where we're sitting, I had a desk. This was my hideout from society. I had left. I'd been living in the Dallas area, Louisville. I can't remember where I lived, and had a breakup and kind of came home and hid out here for about 8 or 10 years. Yeah. But this is a small little apartment it was behind my mom's house. So yeah, and in my late 20s, I lived with my mother in a little apartment behind her house. But then I upgraded, and my brother purchased my mother's house. And so I'm like, oh, now I'm not a loser that lives behind my mom. You know? I'm just living behind my brother. But this is where I started writing. This is where I started writing for magazines. I had a desk here, actually designed this little room that we're in. It didn't have any of these animals. It had a desk that I made and an actual tubed monitor that I wrote behind. And I interviewed Air Force generals in here. I mean, I had a pretty good run.
Well, I remember was it a lot of metal desks, right? Or metal?
It had diamond plate in front of it.
Diamond plate. There you go. Yeah.
I made it was, and the base was pipe.
Okay. Yeah.
So I went and bought pipe and made a base and then put a hardwood top and then wrapped it in diamond plate.
Yeah.
And, it sounds really craftsman, but if you looked at it, you're like,
hey, it was cool. I just thought it was cool.
The joints on this thing.
Yeah.
I didn't have a flat.
I can't be critical of that stuff.
I didn't bookmark websites. I wrote them in pencil on this monitor. I'd write them around the edge, and I had bookmarks done, but I'm a very tactile guy. So I would write them on this monitor and had all the key, custom bike builder named CSIP, SYCIP. I wonder if they're still around. Mooch was always, and then Telluride Daily Planet was my home screen. I'd check that Telluride Daily Planet every day. And I piddled with my book in here, and that's still in purgatory.
Oh, is it? I was going to ask. Yeah. Like I just, cause the book, cause weren't we tasked with helping you come up with some?
Oh, we talk about names.
Yeah. I just remember.
Oh my gosh.
There were some, it was about, if I remember right, there was kind of some people that were turning their lives around, and then they kind of got into a cult, basically. Yeah. And some of them were exotic dancers at one point. And so we were trying to come up with different names.
Crystal Knobs
was one. Okay. So this is tell you a funny story about the Crystal Knobs. So that's been, it's lived in my head rent free for a while. And so Terry had gone to, where did she go? I don't know. I can't remember where. Anyway, she had flown. You know how those guys hold up the iPads and they're like the Uber guys or they drive the black Suburbans to pick someone up at an airport.
They hold up iPads now?
Well, yeah, but it has the name of the.
Oh, I mean, I didn't know this. I thought it was just still paper.
Well, no, now it's iPads.
Okay.
Well, anyway, there's an app you can get that. And so on my iPhone, I put her up. So I put Crystal Knobs on there and I hold it up and she's walking down the escalator, whatever. And all these people are looking at Crystal Knobs. Anyway, so I've used that before
I am so filled with joy, right? Terry and I would come up with names. So this is the late 90s, early 2000s that I had come back to Snyder and started writing and dabbled in the family business to kind of help pay some bills and as little as I could. I mean, I did as little as I could, and I trained like a professional triathlete and wrote and Snyder at that time wasn't a cycling town. I think you and me and Dr. Burleson.
Yeah,
we had a couple of cyclists start to move in. I remember when they would come in, like a couple of young guys started working at Patterson Drilling, some accountants, and I can't remember Daniel where he worked.
Yeah, he worked at the gas plant. He was an engineer.
Yeah. And so young guys from different parts of the state and country.
Yeah, he was Colorado.
School of Mines.
Yeah, School of Mines.
Yeah. Golden, Colorado. And they cycled, so they found us. And I remember they would come and like, oh yeah, man, hey, we went out to, have you ever ridden this road? I go, yeah. They go, well, no, I haven't said where it is. I go, I've ridden every road within an 80-mile radius of this place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I burned them out. I can't do it anymore. I cannot do it. And Mike and I did some amazing, like we rode to Lubbock. That was 100 miles. Our first 100-mile day. Big
It
monumental
was
task.
actually, I think it ended up being a little over 100.
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know
was brutal.
why that's a Snyder Lubbock thing to ride like
Yeah.
down the shoulder of the road.
Oh yeah. To do that today, I don't know. I don't know that I would do it.
No.
That's why I'm, mountain biking to me is now so much more, kind of a better plan, or, gravel or whatever, just because road biking, just people don't pay attention. I mean, now they have rumble strips would help, but all that does is just make you pucker before you get hit.
Yeah, you just know it's coming.
Yeah.
You're like, oh boy, okay, relax. Relax.
Before you just never knew it was going to hit you. But
But you know what? We were riding gravel before it was a thing. You remember that? I mean, we'd be going along and I'd like, hey, Mac, let's take this little gravel road. And you're like,
oh yeah.
And on skinny little road tires. Yeah. You're like, oh
yeah.
We'd have to pick our way through it.
Brandon always needed a little bit of gravel in his life.
Always. Yeah. And I remember when people started talking about gravel, I'm like, well, gravel. I mean, I've been doing, that's just what I think any type of road cyclist has been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Gravel was just because you wanted to do, explore something different. And then
because at one point, cyclocross, I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily different or the same or just a melding of, it's just somebody comes up with a new, it's like,
well, when gravel hit, I'm like, what's the difference between a gravel bike and a cyclocross bike? Well, a cyclocross bike is a 90s mountain bike. A gravel bike is, it's basically 2.1 tires, and it's pretty similar geometry and, drop bars. It's basically a drop bar 90s mountain bike.
Yeah. Okay.
It's John Tomac, was doing that well before.
Yeah.
He rode drop bars on all those Yeti and all those mountain bike races. You'd see him in a drop bar.
Yeah.
26-inch wheels though.
Oh yeah. Okay. Wow. Golly. I mean, you're bringing me back all these memories of, cause we had the idea of going to the Tour de France. Remember that? I mean, no, we did talk about it.
Were we going to ride or are we just
No. Just to go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I think you ended up doing,
I went.
Yeah. You got to go. And, but anyway, it was one of those deals. I think it was on a bike. Discussions on a bike ride sometimes are things that get you in trouble with a wife, because you bring them home and they're like immediately squashed.
Guess what? Brandon wants to do this. Well, Brandon doesn't have a girlfriend or kids. So Jared and I have this trip coming up. It's a story assignment, and we're going to paddle the John Graves Riverway. You familiar with it?
No.
So it's the Brazos River from PK Dam to Lake Granbury. And so John Graves paddled it. I can't remember, since I'm doing the story, I should know when he paddled it, but he paddled it to he was worried the river was going to be overdeveloped with sand mines. So there's sand mining along the Brazos River, and John Graves paddled it in a canoe and brought to attention that we're about to lose this resource, and I've paddled some of this. I've paddled like 6 miles of the Brazos in this area, and it's pretty cool. It's really rustic, and you can camp in sandbars. You can't camp, it's kind of a gray area. If you camp on the shore, it has to be where the water was. So it's just safe to camp in the middle in a sandbar. So it's 20 miles roughly. And we're going to paddle from PK Dam to Lake Granbury for Texas Parks and Wildlife. And so I asked Jared, and I'm like, there's no way he's going to be able to do this.
Okay. Now paddle, stand up or
I'm stand up paddling.
Yeah.
Jared doesn't swim very well.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That's surprising because I mean, I don't know him, haven't met him, but it just seems like that, of anybody that you've kind of talked about on the podcast, in this podcast, that I would be surprised, if I said, hey, let's go swing from a rope, whatever, that Jared probably would do that fairly well, or swim for that matter.
Yeah.
So.
And so he did a story with me where we camped along Possum Kingdom Lake, and he paddled. I mean, he swims. He just not, and because he goes, man, I'll do anything with you. I'm not going to kiteboard. He goes, I won't do that, because I did that with Justin Rex.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, and he was like, man, let's do it. And I mean, he lives in Rio Dosa now. He bides his time between Rio Dosa and Lubbock, and he was on board. And I was like, I can't believe he can, because I mean, he teaches all spring semester, and we're talking about doing it in April. But anyways, he has been obsessively researching canoes. And he said his wife was like, thanks a lot, Brandon.
It's the same. You're just creating. Yeah.
Well, but see, we were talking about this before the podcast. I said like, hey, let's hold this till the podcast or the episode. Jared corrected me one time. He goes, it's an episode. The podcast is the vehicle in which you deliver.
Yeah.
So it's an
there
episode.
Yeah.
But what the hell?
I don't know. I just feel like I'm in trouble for saying podcast, not
No.
episode.
No. Damn it. What happened?
You're talking about your trip.
Trip podcast episode. Heck, I don't know. I just lost I'll be going back through this and editing it. It'll pop back in my head. But yeah, we're doing this river trip, and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and it's one of those deals. I kind of get to vicariously live through you guys' adventures. That's been fun too, to kind of listen to an episode, and whether it's recanting your trip through mid-America or middle America.
Well, and
that's just cool.
Yeah, that motorcycle trip. Did you listen to the last podcast when I talked to Simon and Jared?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one didn't get, I released that right before Thanksgiving. It didn't get quite the play I wanted, but it was really, really good. And
because Simon was like your producer,
he's director. Yeah.
Okay. Now, but there is going to be a movie piece of this that's published on PBS.
There'll be a docuseries.
Docuseries
on Texas Tech PBS. Hopefully, I don't know. There's some crazy stuff going on with government, with funding to PBS and NPR. So I hope that doesn't impact. But I mean, it's made. I mean, the expensive part was done, and we did it on a shoestring budget of a student film crew.
Yeah,
and so that it'll be a docuseries a year, like in October.
Okay.
I think it's going to be released, but it's a ton of data to go through.
Oh, I can imagine.
I mean, I don't know how many terabytes. I want to say 20 something terabytes of information that we recorded through our helmets. Jared and I mean, everything we did was recorded.
Yeah.
So we couldn't talk bad about people.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, just people in the crew. We can talk bad about, Midwesterners.
Well, as a side note, so one of the girls that I think has been on your podcast, or one that you on an episode.
That's what stalled us. Is I corrected
Yeah,
myself, and now I can't know. It's just going to drive me crazy.
Hiked the Pacific Crest Trail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so interestingly, I'd been following two guys because I'm interested. I was interested in the Colorado Trail, and for whatever reason, I guess if you Google through hiking or whatever, it comes up with these other things popping up on an Instagram feed. And so anyway, so I followed these two guys, Tyler or something, and a guy named Cam something or whatever. Well, anyway, then I can't remember her name, but needless to say, I started following her on Instagram as well. And they were right together. It was kind of interesting. I mean, they started similar times. I think the Tyler started earliest, and then Emma. Yeah.
Emma Montgomery.
That's right. Anyway, and she finished. She did finish. They, I don't know how affected it's one of those, I get too involved with each one of them, but as following them through, I didn't realize how yearly the wildfire issue is always there, and I mean, I'm recently impacted by what went on in Los Angeles, but to me, they're like, there's parts of Oregon and Washington that will always, that you're going to have to bypass due to wildfires. I'm like, I just didn't realize, I don't know. I don't know. I guess not living there, didn't really understand that, but they missed, or the one guy that I followed the most, the Camden or whatever, he's from Australia, but I think he missed like 60 miles, but he did the entire length distance wise. But anyway, it's kind of a cool thing, if you want to take 6 months of your life.
Yeah. I mean, you do it when you're young.
Yeah.
That's kind of why Jared and I did the motorcycle trip. That's a bikepacking route. And so it's meant to be done on bicycle. And, you'd have to do it in a month, or, month would be fast. And there's some people that'll probably go out and try to do the fastest known time.
Yeah.
Which I want to ask you about that here in a second. But, it'd probably take a couple of months to properly do it. And Jared's gung ho to do it. I'm not so much. I don't know.
To do it fast, or just to do it?
Just to do it, period.
Just to do it, period.
On bicycle.
Yeah.
I would do the Great Divide, but this would be interesting. But I've seen it now. I've seen it on motorcycles. So we did it on motorcycles to vet the route and come home and still be married. And still have occupations and everything.
And I mean, does it seem? I mean, but it's doable. You think?
Yeah. I mean, the roads are all great, and it would just take a big time out of your life. And there's nothing quite like it right now. But we talked to a bike shop in Tulsa district bikes, not Tulsa, Stillwater. And they were talking about that as soon as it's released, someone's going to hit it and try to, do it as fast as they can. And that there's and so I was thinking about this when we agreed to do the podcast. I was super stoked because, you and I have this, very deep endurance relationship of training and racing, and neither one of us, you're faster than me. You've got some pretty good run times. Not now. Me neither.
Yeah.
We've talked about that.
I don't know that it's called running anymore.
What? My hips are on fire all the time. I get up, I'm like, I do yoga. I do yoga and lift weights. And I'm like, what is happening? But, we've got this deep history of endurance racing. And so fastest known time, FKTs, is a real big thing. And it's great in the mountains, and that's fine. But I don't like, I'm like, you need to toe the line and race against someone else.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just because there's always someone that's done it. It's the fastest known time. I guarantee you there are tons of mountain dudes that have hammered out, like say Colorado Trail race. Of course, that's actually a race. That's, what's going on there. But the fastest dudes that I met in Colorado don't race and don't like to race, and they just go do stuff just to do it. And so maybe that's just you and me being old.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
just do it just to do it. We don't need to post. Of course, I post all kinds of
Yeah.
I only post podcast stuff these days.
Well, that's my whole deal with Strava. Everybody was wanting me to get on Strava, especially here in Snyder. You're like, hey, well, I'm like, yeah, I don't really like it. To me, that's like working out or whatever, or running or cycling or whatever. It's just kind of I'm doing it for a purpose, and it's probably not for social reasons. I don't need people commenting on that sounds kind of arrogant. I don't mean to be arrogant, but I don't want people saying, oh, super fast, whatever, or,
super slow.
I don't I don't want either one.
No.
Like, I know if I'm slow or fast or why I'm doing it,
And you've done some pretty cool stuff. You climbed Mount Rainier.
Yeah.
And I remember when you did that.
Yeah. That's a one and done.
Yeah. The story of having to get up at 3 a.m. and
well, yeah, you hike up, part of the way to the kind of, I don't know that it's the midpoint, but you do that the day prior, and you go to bed at 3 p.m, and then you wake up at midnight basically, or a little after, depending on your team that you're on. And then you go, and then it's a long day because you go all the way to the summit if you can make it. And luckily we had, they say good weather, but it was, we did it in May, and it was, when we got up to the top, we had frost nip on our nose. Yeah. So, and then, stepping over a crevasse that they go, yeah, I think probably 20 buses could fit down in there. And you're like, okay, this is stupid. This is not, and then they don't want to put you on the same rope team because, as far as a family, because they're like, we don't want a whole family to go down into a crevasse. We'd hate to make that call. It's kind of a Saving Private Ryan kind of, scenario. And I'm like, yeah, this is stupid. So anyway, I was like, yeah, most of the mountains that I climb from now on are going to be, like 14ers or something that are, that are doable, but they're doable that you could just walk up a gravel path, maybe.